Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we discuss the arrival of the Machine God. A spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Horus Heresy story Titandeath by author Guy Hayley. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so obviously one of the most defining traits of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Mechanicum as it was before then, is their belief in the Machine God. In essence, to them, it is the Machine God that gave rise and birth to all technology across mankind, and that the machine is the evolution over the biological form we have. It was that belief that perhaps enabled the unification between Mars and Terra, with the Emperor being seen as the Omnissiah, the physical manifestation of the Machine God. An event no doubt intended by the Master of Mankind, repairing a Knight of Mars with a mere touch. As part of that pact between Imperium and Mars, forever would the Mechanicus be a sovereign power, bound to the throne world, but independent, free to continue their religious beliefs in the cult Mechanicus, to worship the Omnissiah, the Emperor, as a god. A complete contradiction to the imperial truth. One of the many times the Emperor bent his own rules. And for me, one of the most fascinating aspects of this is just the mystery surrounding it all. The questions regarding the Machine God. Is the Machine God real? Is the Emperor truly the Omnissiah? Is it an aspect of his power? And if it is the Emperor, does he in fact get empowered by the Martian beliefs across the galaxy, as he does the Imperium's faith in the future God Emperor? Well, we may never get the answers to all of those questions, but we may be able to answer some. And that could be thanks to a possible sighting of the Machine God itself within the novel Titandeath. Now, the story largely follows the forces of the Mechanicus and its Titan legions as they battle across the Beta Garman campaign, Rogel Dawn's final grand gambit, before the War Master reaches the throne world. And within this campaign, a loyalist Titan princeps named Mahana Mankata dies, and what takes place after this is very, very interesting indeed. There was wind upon her skin. She was youthful again, and free of the tank and the infirmities of age. Her steed, Hamaj, tensed between her legs, eager to surge forward into the landscape before them. The dark forest lay behind. Ahead, there was nothing but golden grasses as far as the eye could see, the kind of landscape a rider could lose themselves in forever. Downy seeds brushed against skin, warmed perfectly by the setting sun. "Come, Hamaj," she whispered. The horse needed no encouragement, but sprang into a gallop straight away, arrowing through the grasslands towards forever. A heaven of sorts. But it could not last. A diabolical laugh cut the sky, making it bleed. Grass wilted where the sound travelled. The earth shook. The wound in the sky spread its bloody lips, opening up on a vista of madness. An ocean of energy where monsters waited to devour her. "Stop," she commanded, but Hamaj did not heed her and plunged onwards. The ground shook and began to break into fragments. Soil frittered away into multicoloured vapour. Grass launched itself at the growing rift like arrows loosed. An invisible force pulled at her soul, dragging her towards the waiting maelstrom of sharp eyes and teeth. Hamash whined in panic and fell into the yawning nothingness. The last parts of the prairie vision evaporated, leaving her alone. Otherworldly predators circled, ready to tear her to shreds. Mahana Mankata screamed. This was the reality of the warp. This was what the Imperial truth hid. At the last moment, she felt utterly betrayed, and understood finally why the traitors had turned. Okay, so this is obviously within the warp. And this isn't the first time within the lore that we've seen this kind of thing happen. We know particularly powerful souls do indeed move on to the warp. I remember one scenario within an Eisenhorn story. And the Great Angel, Sanguinius himself, is probably the most famous example of a soul existing within the warp, having now had several appearances within the lore after his death. And those circling predators obviously are the demons of the warp, the servants of chaos. And so you can understand Mankata's anger here, her sense of betrayal. At the end of it all, learning the great Imperial truth was all in fact a lie. However, the story continues on. Wide-winged things with rasping mouths dived at her through looping whirls of impossible colours. She floated helplessly. Through will alone, she shifted herself aside from a swooping beast. Its razoured fins caught her, and her soul's arm bled light. The creatures turned, excited by the scent of corpuscent under the Emprian's current, and dived. She closed her eyes, wishing it all to be over. A great song played. The loudest war horn she had ever heard blasted across the non-space of the warp, and foundry heat beat at her back. She opened her eyes to find herself surrounded by a golden light, and the creatures fled before it. Trembling, she turned. A vast being filled eternity. She had the impression of a human form, though the entity was too large for a mortal eye to encompass. Its blood and bones were grinding cogs. Its faults, living streams of plasma. Its eye lenses the size of galaxies. An iron door appeared in the maze of machinery in front of her. She looked up, searching for a face, and saw a shining entity looking back down that turned from flesh to light to mechanism and back. Through the door radiated the familiar, plasmic warmth of Luxor Invictoria's reactor. She sensed its machine soul, more apparent to her now, not almost alive, but truly living by the grace of her machine god. A voice spoke within her, beautiful as the finest singer, grating as the mightiest machine. While there is service, there is life, it said. It is time. Mahana Mankata passed through the portal, where for one last, ultimate time, she joined with the spirit of the Titan. So Mankata's soul is apparently joining with that of her Titan here, the Luxor Invictoria, and being embraced by the machine god. Now, what makes this fascinating for me is the time that this is transpiring. It feels like something we'd easily expect to see within the current 40k timeline, with the Emperor arising and the War of the Gods. We've seen the Emperor act across the galaxy, Nurgle, and even the Blood God Khorne, not to mention the formation of the Tau God. But again, as I said earlier, This is within the heresy, before the Siege of Terror, before the Emperor's permanent internment to the Golden Throne. So it makes it even more intriguing. It raises the question of, is this truly a separate entity, the real machine god? Or is it still somehow the Emperor, the Omnissiah? For me, the golden light, and the fact it scares off the minions of chaos, is a definite sign it has to be some representation of the Emperor, the God Emperor he'd become. We know he is anathema to the powers of chaos, and he is always represented within the lore by the golden light, symbolic with him. Yes, we get a lot of time doesn't work the same within the warp, but let's not go down that particular rabbit hole today. For today, isn't it just possible it is an aspect of the God Emperor, birthed here, at this point, due to the worship of the Mechanicum? Maybe the very first aspect or shard of the Emperor that birthed within the warp was that of his Omnissiah self, fueled by the faith of Mars. The human form of the figure again reinforces more Emperor to me than anything else. And the words from the voice, while there is service, there is life. Well, she has been serving the Emperor, fighting his war. That quote only really makes sense to me if this machine god is the Emperor. It doesn't make sense if this machine god isn't him. Because yes, they have been fighting for the Mechanicum, but it's all in truth in service to the Emperor, the Omnissiah. So for me, I think this sighting is absolutely the Cult Mechanicus aspect of the Emperor, birthed within the warp. Most likely the first part of the future God Emperor that we would see rise in the aftermath of the heresy. And I'd never even considered the Mechanicus aspect before, but it makes perfect sense. Sure, the Mechanicus aren't as widespread in number as the rest of humanity, the Imperium, but they're still a galactic spanning empire. If the belief and faith of the future Imperium would spawn the God Emperor, well then why wouldn't the Cult Mechanicus give birth to the machine god? Of course it would. And when we know the Emperor's mind will appear to be shattered into various shards across the galaxy and warp as the God Emperor, referenced in the lore throughout the years, including most recently in Gilliman's reunion flashback, wouldn't it actually make sense for one of those aspects to be the Omnissiah? In thinking about it, of course it would. There in fact should be an aspect for the machine god, for the Omnissiah. And this is our first, our only, sighting of it. And I don't know about you, but that really makes me excited to see more of it within the current timeline. This ulterior aspect of the God Emperor appearing across the galaxy, exactly as with the other sightings of his power. Maybe even being the Mechanicus' counter to Vashtor the Archiphone, the anathema to his infectious power upon technology. Because it's another great point. With the eruptions of power and saints across the galaxy in growing number, why haven't we seen this happen within the Cult Mechanicus too? Isn't it about time that we did? With the Omnissiah now shown to be the oldest portion of the God Emperor, I think it's definitely about time we did. But as always everyone, what do you think? Is this sighting within the warp the true machine god? And is it in actual fact a semblance of the God Emperor? An aspect of his power that rose before his permanent interment upon the throne? Doesn't it make sense for the faith of the Mechanicum, the future Adeptus Mechanicus, to spawn the Omnissiah within the warp? And if so, isn't it about time we saw him acting throughout the faction? Or do you have a different opinion, and that maybe this is proof that the machine god is not the Emperor? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.